This is Listening with Franklin Livingston, and our guest is Tricia McMann.
So we talked about the struggle with the normativity, like the norm of following a man wherever he leads you to. And if that was the norm and high school, that's the norm you lived by. But we didn't talk about, did you question it then, or you didn't even feel that you needed to? And if yes and no, what happened in your college days?
I think I questioned it. I didn't really do anything about it. I think maybe as when college came along, I probably had a little more perspective on the subject itself, and wasn't because you're older. You're 19, 18, 19 now, um, and you're kind of out of that bubble anyway because you're away from home. There's more of a variety of people. So I think you have a better chance of kind of being yourself than you do in high school. So yeah, I think I started to really come into who I wanted to be. And didn't really have too much concern about what people thought.
You still had a motorcycle?
No, so that's when I kind of stopped. Like,
Hmm.
and then everything kind of started happening after that, like in college. So I didn't have a bike then.
You just wanted to be girly and girl.
Well, I don't think I was never really girly. Um, but I can be the first to wear jeans and a sweatshirt and then a gown that evening,
Mm.
and I love both aspects of it. So, um, but college was also pretty, everybody wore sweatpants anyway. It was a institution. It was a bigger city, same state, but just closer to Boston, and wasn't a large university, but it had a good amount of people. And I went there for criminal justice. So, and that was the other thing I was kind of following in my father's footsteps, which obviously never panned out. I'm in marketing now. So, um, yeah, it's just, I think you have the more freedom to be who you are, and you come across different people anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I have seen in my experiences there are two kinds of people. Yeah, that statement has been used a lot. Two kinds of people. But when I say two kinds of people who find this urge, something from inside tells them, let's question this. It's maybe not right, or I want a little different, right?
Mhm.
And those who are the people who end up becoming trendsetters.
Mhm.
But then there are people whose eyes are opened to a different perspective when they go out of that bubble.
Right.
And because they grew up very sheltered, or they grew up with certain norms and traditions, and they did not know there's an alternative to it.
Mhm.
So that's what I was trying to understand. You had both those things I heard when I asked you, like, did you question? You were like, yeah, I wanted to, but maybe did not. To the point like, hey, revolution.
Yeah.
But then you went to a different city, and then you saw different people and maybe different perspectives.
Yeah.
That happened to me actually.
Yeah.
Because when I was like, okay, that's the way you gotta be in a romantic relationship. Whatever she says, you just follow her or make her happy. And also, there was a weird thingy that maybe a woman is more sensitive, or what's the word? Not weak vessel, like I know in the New Testament when the Apostle Paul says weak vessel. I think that's different than like girly, right?
Mhm.
A Disney type girl.
Yeah.
So then, okay, you gotta give her everything, or like a cliche will be giving the jacket to a woman. We see
Right.
those kind of movies,
Yeah.
and I think that was all wrong idea, and it got challenged when I saw. different version of humanity, especially in New York, I think, or uh, trying to understand when. But my ideas, initial ideas, were challenged
Mm-hmm.
by meeting and seeing women who were totally not girly girly, still happily married or in relationships, and still knew who their husband was, a boyfriend, and how to respect them
Right.
and how to receive respect without becoming like, oh my god, I can't even walk and all that,
Right.
or pick me up here because I am a female, or
Right.
just leave your car for me because I can't really take the subway because
Yeah.
I'm a girl.
Yeah.
So that all was crazy. It took years
Yeah.
for me. Maybe inside I felt, and I did not know that I was feeling that.
Yeah.
But I think I got more informed by relating to diverse people.
Right. Which makes sense. I think too. I mean, I never really was that person anyway. To me, holding a door open is reciprocal.
Hmm.
I'm going to hold it open for a guy behind me, and hopes that a woman in front of me is going to hold the door for me. It's not
Yeah, everybody does
you need
do
to
that.
open the door and hold it for me as I walk through
Yeah.
this. And I never had that thought process to
A
begin with.
lot of younger females, a particular kind of maybe, don't even say thank you. And I've noticed that in the city
Yes.
because I think they think maybe I'm pretty or I'm looking hot. That's why he opened the door. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. But I'd be surprised that okay, they don't really care.
It they expect it. It's just an expectation and not somebody actually, going out of their way to do something respectful and nice. And I think because that does drive me crazy. Like if I do hold the door, I'll say thank you, or if it's held for me. And that's just it's a common courtesy that should happen. But I think a lot of people now, um, they either expect it or they just don't even hold the door anymore. I think a lot of people do that also. Just I would be, 1 foot away and there's no skin on their back by holding the door and they don't. So it's kind of like, what is that thought process? Um, I think people just can be a lot ruder too. Whereas back in the day, maybe that happened more often, the holding the door or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's just a common courtesy in my mind. Um, and it should
And that
be.
makes a huge difference in someone's life that
Hmm.
particular day. And I've noticed that.
Yeah.
Uh, Somebody will open a door and they'll smile, or you'd smile. And you're right, like more when you go north, more like small towns, you'd see people holding doors and you say thank you,
Yeah.
and they'll say, "Oh, you're welcome. Have a great day."
Yeah.
I sometimes like begin talking to them, and like, "Oh, are you having a great day?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to see my daughter or son, because those cities,
Yeah.
towns, mostly rural people live there.
Yeah. And I think, and especially in a lot of other countries too, it's a lot different, and it's surprising to me, like when we went to Morocco and Marrakesh, and it was, everybody was just super respectful, and um, but it wasn't like nobody felt like they were going out of their way,
Hmm.
but it was just a common courtesy, and then you say thank you, and everybody smiles, and um,
I haven't been to Morocco. I was like, oh my god, is it safe
oh,
to go there?
you have to go to Marrakesh.
Uh-huh.
The whole place. I mean, but I kind of zoned in on Marrakesh just because it was so.
It's the city in Marrakesh.
Yeah, and it was
Oh,
just so
oh,
cool.
Marrakesh. Okay, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
But there's other like I stayed in like the Agafay Desert, which was amazing. It was just this vast desert, but then you
Mm,
have this little like these fancy tents out
right.
there, and with the camels and all that. But anyway, but you come back and you're like, your first thought process is, wow, the best part was everybody was so nice. And it's kind of like you would think that would be the norm
Mm.
as opposed to when somebody's super nice here, it takes you aback a little bit.
Yeah, because we are taught to
Mhm.
like, why is she smiling at me? Why?
Yeah.
What does he
Like, is
want?
there something on my
Right?
face? Like, what's that?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's again, it goes back to that belief system that you develop and learn early on. Stranger is a danger,
Yes.
and which got challenged when I was, I think, doing my educational courses. I forgot which course, but I learned most of these um, particular kind of crimes are
Mhm.
done by people who know you.
Yeah. And
And I
that
was
whole
like,
stranger danger
oh
goes out the, yeah.
my God, because the stranger does
Yeah.
not know a lot of your loopholes
Yeah.
or in and outs. And so it's not that a stranger is a danger, but
Yeah.
so that was the idea that whenever someone you don't know is looking at you,
Right.
oh my God, you should freak out.
Right. Right.
So
It could be just they're admiring your outfit or, and I think there should be more of that too. Like I always, if I see something on somebody, and I think it looks great, I'll tell them, and I
you
just,
telling is a little different than me saying, "Hey, that suit looks great on
yeah,
you," right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
let's talk about this admiration. Did
Okay.
you use word admire?
Yeah, I could.
Yeah, yeah. No, I forgot what word you used for real.
Oh, for which stuff for?
For right now, you were saying they might be admiring you, or
Oh, well, no, I mean, I don't, did I use a word? I think I just like if I like something or, I think something looks good on somebody, I'll tell them.
you'll tell them. Oh, it's okay. Let's go with telling.
Yeah.
Many parts of the world, people commonly, it's a norm. They would admire. And you were so used to this. Oh my God, that looks really nice. Or they might say, that's different,
Hmm.
which could also mean like, it's nice. Don't
Yeah.
wear that again. But here, the question is if it's positive, still you are supposed to take it negative and try to assess what does he want? Oh, he's being a creep.
Hmm.
Is he flirting with me? And our mind doesn't stop there because this is what I have heard. This is what I have experienced. The mind starts if he's admiring me, definitely he wants to get into my pants. But when you think he wants to get in my pants, you don't even think of date relationship or a romantic connection. You right away think of an extreme.
Yeah.
Okay, he's want to get into my pants and then probably kill me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
So right away you are setting yourself up to have that fear we talked about, and then affect you. You develop social anxiety and all those kind of things.
Right.
Instead of thinking and taking it literal, that what if it does look nice on me?
Hmm.
What if I do look nice?
Yeah.
What if there's something he or she sees in me that gives them energy, that reminds him or her of something?
Right. That's a
Right?
great way to energy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And if we keep it at that level,
Hmm.
it's just like all alternate way of thinking rather than starting from the very pessimistic way of thinking, because in the end of the day nothing really happened, nothing is going to happen,
Right.
and God forbid if something is going to happen, it's going to happen.
Hmm.
So by you thinking negatively will affect your posture sitting in the subway or at a public place,
Right.
and it doesn't really affect the other person.
Right.
So you are the one who's carrying that trauma with you. You are the one who's like having all this problem and rushing the blood through your system and ending up having not being able to sleep and say, I don't know what happened to me tonight. Maybe I ate more pizza. Maybe I had more caffeine.
Yeah.
And you might have no clue how that particular instance traumatized you.
Right.
Now, the other so that's one way to look at it when somebody admires you. The other one is if somebody says, oh, that's a nice choice, olive green, and you sense, Oh, so they don't like it.
Right.
But I don't think you, as a culture, you think they don't like it. You think, oh, they're judging me,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
How dare they judge me?
Right.
So you don't say anything to that person. You go home, you talk to your partner, you throw things away, or you talk to you. If you're female, you have friends you'll call. If you're a guy,
Yeah.
just gonna go to a bar, drink beer and liquor, straight liquor, and try to understand why she didn't like my hat or didn't like my suit, and that's really, I don't know. She thinks I'm not good enough,
Hmm.
and she thinks, you know why? Because I was fat. And I've had like one of my friends, and he's like, I think if I lose 20 pounds, I'll have more dates. And I was like, dude, you're already handsome. He's a white guy. He's taller than me. He's great face cut and all. Okay, he was
Yeah.
a little bit, maybe he has weight. But if somebody wants to date him for real, I don't think they should start from six pack or eight packs, because you both can work out and if you really want to do something. But
Yeah.
if the guy's going to be with you through thick and thin, maybe that's important. But again, going back to the swipe left type thing.
Right. Right.
So we right away have these black and white thoughts. And the outcome of both those thoughts are negative. If somebody praises you, admires you, still. If somebody does not, criticizes you, still.
Yeah.
Whereas in many parts of the world, people will just, I don't know about Morocco, but I know in some Arabian countries, I have only been to Manila, um, country, city, Dubai, so it's not really an Arabian, authentic one.
Yeah.
But Morocco is authentic Arabian, because I know a musician who lives in the city, and he's from Morocco.
Yeah.
And so they are very, I think they talk a lot, and they actually pay attention to the colors you would wear and how you
Right.
would appear.
Right.
Here too in this building, but I think the reason is they know me, and usually it's men.
Yeah.
A woman will never say to me, but guys, hey, you look sharp, bro.
Really?
But maybe they know I'm more friendlier, outgoing, or
Hmm.
I don't know if they do the same to another, say, a white male in 60s, a lawyer here in suit, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll say that to him. This guy's a lawyer.
Yeah.
Right now, that's talking.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't say that. He's not very friendly, but yeah, I don't know. This is
Yeah.
the cultural norm. How is it for you in Morocco?
I mean, I think nothing gets overthought there. It's just, one of the concerns was I thought was interesting was being blonde hair and going there, being told from here, beware because they're not used to blonde haired people. You're gonna get treated differently. That you're gonna get stared at. You're gonna get, who knows? And it was all kind of sounding not positive.
Mhm.
So I was kind of a concern. But there wasn't anything. There was, you know, no, I wasn't pinpointed out of a group of, dark haired people versus being light hair. It just wasn't as common,
Mhm.
it's a lot darker hair there. So, but it was just kind of like somebody giving me that thought process in my brain.
Mm.
I automatically carried it with me, with this expectation that I was going to be treated differently somehow. But it wasn't. It was nobody cared.
Mm.
Everybody was just doing what they do throughout the day and respectful and nice. And it was just, yeah.
So, do they also have in Morocco where, again, it would depend where, uh, but some places where they just say, "Oh, okay, just hang with us, have tea
Hmm.
or a meal."
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Yes. I drank a lot of tea when I was out there
Mhm.
because that's kind of their time of decompressing.
In the
Um,
afternoon or evening?
all day long,
Oh,
all
okay.
day long.
And there's no sense of caffeinated.
No, and I was so worried about that because I'm like, I don't want to not participate. However, I can't drink, 5, 10 cups of tea a day. But it's a little different tea anyway. It's not like our, you know, turbo caffeinated stuff.
Because I remember I went to a Turkish restaurant in London, in Hammersmith area,
Hmm.
and I wanted to try the food. And after the food, they gave me a cup of tea, which I didn't ask for, with some sort of cookie or snack. I totally forgot, or maybe dessert. They dessert.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, that's probably part of the culture. They want to give that, so that's great.
Yeah.
But they were the staff. I don't know if they were owners too, but very warm people, very calm. Their energy was
Yes.
very, very calming and
Very calm.
great. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I highly suggest
Okay.
checking it out.
All right. One day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So these people, countries like Morocco, people don't have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But are they more content? Like I've seen in Asia, Asian countries, people don't have a lot of money, but there is a particular kind of contentment which is unexplainable.
I think so. I mean, and I think it depends on how you're measuring the money. I mean, everything that we have over here, they don't necessarily have over there, so they're not missing it. So they don't feel like, well, I'm poor because I can't afford, and I'm making it up, like an Xbox. And because it's just not there. So they're not missing it feeling that they're poor, but they have a lot of other things in their homes to make it comfortable. So I don't think there's a measuring where we do in the United States. So you're rich, you're poor, and I can clearly tell the difference. Um,
Because here's an example. Uh, I rented an apartment from a school teacher. I don't know what kind of school, but I'm assuming she communicated with me in English. And if she's speaking English in Vietnam, she was privileged. Oh, the apartment was really fancy and building was fancy and all that. But her TV did not have YouTube. And so I communicated and I learned she never needed YouTube.
mm-hmm.
And I asked, like, how does she spend time during the weekends? And she would go into a park with her daughter, or walk, or do something in nature. I was surprised. Oh, great. So people who have money now, she might be upper middle class, but then there are people who are elitist who can afford anything. They can send a jet plane to the UK or US and get anything they want,
Right.
or Australia. Same in other countries. But average person knows they don't have a Ferrari, but it doesn't stress them out.
Right.
Even with the Xbox, let's say a kid knows that the kid is a adult still, but a butler in a rich family's house, and the kid knows that his boss's kid has an ex-boss, but he's contented where he's at, and I think that's great because
Yeah.
contentment doesn't let you have stress and anxiety and depression, and you're like, oh my god, I don't have this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I was really touched by in Asia. This was my first time staying that long in a city or in a country abroad. 'Cause previously, it was like you go there for 3 days and that's it.
Right.
But you don't get to see
Right.
the real side of the people.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think that's a lot of these places, a lot of these places that, you know, they're trying to get tourists in.
Mhm.
Morocco being one of them. I was just in Belize, not too long ago. And, there's the areas of it where, you got this amazing resort, right? And then there's the regular village type
I like
living.
that regular. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think these the people that live there, they see wow, these people obviously have a lot of money. They're here, they're traveling, which is not necessarily the case, um, but they, yeah, they're living a lot less stressful life with with what they have, with the roof over the head, and the health, and you don't sweat it,
Mhm.
whereas I think when you just have so much that it almost becomes it's not a good thing,
Mhm.
so it's nice. And I think that's where a lot of the attitudes come from too, where you're like, wow, these people are so nice. It's because they're happy.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
not thinking, oh my God, I have to get the iPhone, 15 now because, my neighbor does,
Mm.
and silly things like that. So that's what I enjoy, and that's
Yeah, no, I wanted to, which is really, it's not true. You can't really figure out human emotions in terms of being black and white. But I was like, I wish I could learn that secret.
yeah,
I think it was Vietnam where I saw a couple, a young couple. The female was dressed up like a princess. So I don't know, they had an event or what was going on. And her boyfriend or gentleman with her, might be husband, I don't know, in tux and all. So they were sitting uh, outside a very inexpensive restaurant eating food, and they had like stools, and usually they have a bowl and noodles and all. And so in my mind, I was thinking, okay, so the way she's dressed up, her, if that's her status, social status or economic status, that's not coming in the way of her living out her happiness.
hmm,
So she didn't aim to go to a five-star restaurant or fancy dinner or whatever, because maybe that doesn't mean anything to her,
right,
and maybe that's what keeps her humble or happy. You never know. You
yeah,
can't really study that unless you
yeah,
really talk or live with them.
uh,
Um, but that was very different.
yeah. Unless she's just spent too much on that dress and then couldn't afford a fancy restaurant.
No, there's no such culture. That's another thing.
Yeah,
The fancy restaurants I went to, people were not hanging out in groups there.
yeah,
So I noticed people who hang out in groups with families, they go to regular eating
yeah,
place
yeah,
because maybe their focus is on the food
right,
and the experience of being with each other rather than that fancy
yeah,
chandelier and lights and stuff. I
hmm,
was trying to understand that, and
yeah,
I was like, all right, maybe. I don't know.
yeah.
There's something definitely different. Yeah. And it was great. Yeah.
hmm,
A little different for me, but yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So I think if there's a culture that's need based, because your want never ends. You always want something
right,
and better than before. Because that's what you see now, especially with the social media. But if you say, I just need this and I'm okay with that, I
yeah,
think that might make you contented.
yeah. I mean, and you've seen people that do that. That they had the boat and the $1 million home and everything that money can buy, and then they just one day they wake up and they were like, I'm gonna just give away everything and just live um with the basics, the survival basics, shelter, food, um and you talk to them afterwards, and it's just interesting to hear, like, how they just realized they just didn't need all of
Mhm.
that, and how wasteful. I mean, just look at our planet now, like just the
Mhm.
waste factor of what we do, of having to make everything new the next year and bigger, and um, but I was always interested in people that do that. I
Mhm.
There's not a lot of people that would do that. Nobody's really going to give up all their boats and fancy.
Yeah,
Um,
because I think the people I know knew
mhm,
uh, it was a status symbol for them
mhm,
having
yeah,
a boat.
Yeah.
and your neighbor knows you have a boat.
Yeah.
And there's a couple. I used to spend weekend at their very nice house, uh, and they were then middle-aged, highly successful from world's perspective. Gentleman was an engineer, wife was a cardiologist for the State Department and all. And they would go to Mexico every year with their friends.
Hmm.
And after a couple of years, I learned that when they go to Mexico, they live in this resort and they only hang out with the people they went with from the US.
Yeah.
So I was like, so when do you experience the real experience? And in their mind, they visited Mexico, which they did.
Yeah.
But when I travel, I think it's a little different. I'd love to talk. And these days I use app. I don't
Yeah.
speak the language. The app translates. I drive different cabs and buses or trains and
Right.
eat their food. But it's not the same for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. That it seems kind of silly to do something that you can technically do where you're
Here.
from, to spend all
Yeah.
that money and time and energy. And um but when I was in Belize, it was the same way, though. Everybody was saying, don't leave the resort, don't leave the resort. And of course we left the resort.
Is Belize one of the islands nearby? How far
No,
is
it's
Belize?
done. It's in South America towards um
Venezuela?
is it, I'm so bad
No,
with
how?
geography because I
Come
don't
on.
even I don't
I
even
don't
re-
even know how to get to Boston without using a GPS
yeah,
from New York City.
it's in
So.
South Africa
Oh, South Africa
or
or South America?
South America.
Wait,
Before people are saying
wait.
she went there, doesn't even know where she was.
You
I can
were
picture it, but it is in South America.
all right.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
So from United States.
Right. It's
So
right
it
on that.
shouldn't take more than Venezuela. Still,
Yes.
yeah, South America. Yeah.
Yeah. That's South Africa. That was Morocco. Yes.
Yes. Interestingly, see, Egypt is also in Africa,
Yes.
and they are Arabs, right? These are different kinds of Arabs, Morocco people, and Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so interesting that because when some of us think Africans, we think of just the darkest people on earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But these countries are also part of Africa,
Mm-hmm.
North Africa.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when people offered you tea
Mm-hmm.
or food, how was your response for the first time? Are you gonna ask me to pay, or who's paying for it, or why aren't they paying? Especially when you're going from here, or you were not that kind of person.
No, I don't. I mean, I knew a little bit of the culture to begin with, so I
Mm.
knew that that was just something that the hospitality in general is like that, and it is something that it's part of their upbringing and ritual throughout the day. Because again, they we're here, we're like, oh, 9 to 5, I got to work all day long, and then I got to go home and I got to take care of the kids, and it's not like that at all. There's no set time for really anything, so a lot of it is taking that time, having that cup of tea, and not sitting there thinking, well, I gotta get this done. And so knowing that, it was welcomed. It was just now we just sit and look around and see other people, and it's nice out. I think some of the silliest little things get overlooked in our culture and day to day activities because everybody's just on high speed.
Hmm.
I gotta get this done, I gotta make more money, I gotta get another boat. It's just craziness.
Something which I have seen in some cultures, this money, right? Um, I have had that experience several times. trying to see, even maybe in the US once, went with a friend to a grocery store, and it was a ethnic grocery store. And I bought something. Saved. I don't remember exact amount, but maybe it was for eat something.
Mm-hmm.
And when I took out uh, my wallet and the cash, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and I was, oh, okay, it's 7. And the guy said, oh, it's okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
And my friend said, okay, try that at a chain or a very American grocery store, which she meant non-ethnic.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get that kind of treatment.
Right.
But I have had those kind of instances where people would just, they would say it's okay. I was in London and I was passing by a very small store, ethnic type.
Yeah.
The store wasn't ethnic, the gentleman was. And I walked in and I said, do you have gum? And he gave me gum. And I said, okay, how much? And he was like, £1 and 25 pennies or something. And I said, oh, okay. I didn't have cash. And I said, oh, you can have it back. And he was like, no, just take it. And I said, well, I mean, he said, yeah, whenever you get a chance,
Yeah.
uh, just stop by. And I did stop by, but I think he knew it was okay. What if I don't stop by? Because he
Right.
kind of knew, he sensed that I wasn't from there. Um, so I have had those kind of experiences in Asia too,
Mm-hmm.
which definitely is rooted in some sort of this hospitality or culture where giving away or sharing is not a big deal.
Right. Right.
And I know you had an some story experience with this massage guy. Because I don't know, I don't want to call them therapist or whatever the
Yeah.
respectful term is. But
Yeah.
do you want to share about that?
Yeah. So I was in a car accident, and I had, hurt my back and my neck. And so somebody he told me about this gentleman, an Indian gentleman in town. So I said, why not? I'm in pain. And it was, I walked in, and right away you can tell this is not your basic, American massage. I'm probably making it sound bad, but it was very comfortable. I know, I don't
It
want to make.
wasn't like
I,
a massage.
yeah, I know. Let me
Yeah.
rephrase that. It wasn't like very like hospital looking. It was more of something if you went to somebody's living room. It was very like comfortable looking. And so he started out, before, not just get on the table, I'll give you a massage. He was just more of like, what's going on? And I told him, and then he just took like a deeper approach of not only how I was doing physically, but mentally, how I was doing emotionally. And he just started talking to me where you almost feel like it was very therapeutic. um and I just started sharing everything that kind of was building up after this accident and the frustration. And so after the therapeutic session, I had an hour massage, and it was like a deep tissue, and it was the strongest massage I've ever had. And it turns out he was 91 years old, which I could not believe. Because I'm thinking, why, first of all, why is he doing this? There's,
He should be retired somewhere in South America.
yeah,
Right? Yeah.
exactly.
Or he should be on his boat.
Yeah, and he just explained that this is something he enjoys, and that's what keeps him going.
Mhm.
And then I went to pay, and he said, no, there's no charge. And I'm like, what do you mean there's no charge? I had a therapy session. I had a massage. Of course there's a charge. And he said, if you have money,
Means, yeah.
yeah, you can pay me. If you don't, then
Don't worry about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about it. And I had never experienced something like that before. and he just, and you could tell that I was, taken aback, or I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to give him. I gave him an amount that he in turn said, I can't take that amount because that's way too much.
Mhm.
Um, and it was just, I couldn't even tell you the feeling. It was just more shock, but he wasn't doing it to, be rich.
Mhm.
I didn't know his economic background. Maybe he was fine. Maybe working till he's 91, you save up a lot of money.
I think
Um,
for a lot of people in many countries around the world, for them doing fine means if you can eat twice a day, period.
yeah.
But for a lot of people around me, doing fine means like a friend who left New York City last month, and she was like, I can't live in. And she was living in Brooklyn. And I was like, what's going on? She was like, no, I can't live in the city anymore. I gotta have at least 25 grand a month. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna just go and move in with my parents in California. She did. So why? Because I think it's okay to share without her name, but now she had a ritual of going to a coffee shop using an Uber
Hmm.
first thing in the morning. And I was like, okay, I don't think you need to do that. Why can't you make coffee at home, right?
Right.
But those changes, some people don't like.
Right.
And just imagine if we talked about relationships early on. Just imagine she was in a relationship and her spouse had said the same thing. It would have been a breakup.
Yeah.
Right.
But the one thing, yeah.
So, because we think that's the freedom I've got, and you question my freedom,
Right.
and you just don't want me to be free or privileged or whatever.
Right.
But then I mean, when I travel abroad, sometimes I just need once a day meal. That's it, a cup of
Mhm.
tea, and I'm fine.
Yeah.
And there are people like that who do different things not to become, sorry, millionaires so they could have a boat, because they feel led that that's their call.
Hmm.
And their call is to help the other human being through the gift and graces they have been given.
Hmm.
Interestingly, and we talked about this during the break, uh, Christianity also has that concept, and people would, they might read, it's in the book of Matthew, Gospel of Matthew. But I think when you are influenced by a materialistic culture, then either you forget it or no one talks about that, or I never ever heard a sermon on that because people would probably walk out. This preacher guy wants us to lose our house and all that.
Right.
And I get surprised, but I understand because I have a cross cultural in me. I know people who are multimillionaire, and if they have acted on a project or something, and if it's getting late, let's say I didn't pay them in a week, so they'll begin reminding me,
Hmm.
right? And in my mind, it's like you don't need money, but it's a wrong approach because culturally, it's not about need. It's like this is what I deserve, or this
Yeah.
is what I want,
Yeah.
right? And it was a struggle because I'm early on. I think it was a foreign idea to me because I was like this gentleman. He was, I don't know, no, you shouldn't pay me that much, right? And there still are people, but the percentage is very
Hmm.
low
Yeah.
because right away people think, even yesterday, sometimes people will surprise you. A fresh student will say, "Oh, I usually charge this, but I'll charge this," and it's their way of showing their importance
Hmm.
without knowing who the person is. He might be more experienced than you, but it's just like a different approach to money. It's the same thing. If I want to buy you, I hated this word initially when people would say, "I'll buy you food."
Yeah.
Oh, all right. But see, it's a cultural thing. The language is also a part of the culture.
Right.
And so if I say I were to buy Trisha 10 cups of coffee or tea. Oh my God, that's a lot of money for me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the world we live in.
Right.
Whereas in some countries, people just love your company so much,
Right.
they don't care because their belief system, maybe they grew up with, is whatever you have, just share with others,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
because their focus is on people,
Mm-hmm.
and when you're around people, you feel happy. You feel more relaxed and just
Yeah.
having fun, and it's a healthy fun uh, rather than doing something crazy in isolation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know, because even with my marketing
Mm.
firm, I've come across situations where somebody needs something from me work wise, and for instance, like a website, and they had the means to, you know, go in one direction, but it didn't make any sense. And so I would say, well, you don't need to spend that kind of money when you can do this
Mhm.
and be just as happy and spend a third of what you were thinking. And, my husband will be overhearing and he's like,
Mhm.
what are you doing? This is your
Mhm.
business. But, to me, it seems like if you're doing the right thing, the money will come in a certain way so
Mhm.
that you can support yourself
Mhm.
and get by with what you have, as opposed to, okay, yeah, I could have made a couple thousand off of this person, but I'm not going to because it doesn't make sense for them. So that's kind of how I look at it, but I know a lot of people do not, and that's not going to make me rich. But what is rich anyway? Being rich is having the things in your life that are important, and your health and your kids, and everybody's happy, and being productive people. So to me, you know it's nice to be able to do a couple other things. But yeah,